Series 93-100, items 27 through 51. Count them. Without a biased reference point, nothing can be described or explained, but without a lack of one, neither can anything new. City news. History in the making. City thinking. Fallen cakes or bacon. Amongst simple people, mere peculiarity can pass for originality. Among animals, eccentricity is not long tolerated. With the more civilized of men, its forbearance is also of limited duration. Fashion fact. Birds properly pursue a seasonable wardrobe change, while cats are expected to remain in their same old ratty fur. In this one alleged fun spot, the rule of the house was, a man on drugs should talk only to himself. Neural panhandling in the street, on the phone. Dropping anger in the can before they can say, your time is up. Well, at least I gave it an intro, so you can't say you didn't have a chance. It was neural panhandling in the street, on the phone. In one land, the king, who sometimes secretly drove a bus on the weekends, thought to himself, if my priests and philosophers could but better sing, dance, or slam dunk, we could have a higher natural ratio of entertainment to seriousness around here. Since ordinary men don't know what to do with themselves mentally, they're wont to tell others how to behave. This also limes the operational distinction between institutions and an individual thinker. One thinker's ad hoc definition. Human institutions. The 5 horse sisters in different dresses. Regarding what is seen from public positions versus private ones. As curious as it may sound, public vision is narrow vision, and only the private possibly otherwise. You mean a whole lot of people see even less than one? I didn't ask you to analyze them. You're supposed to read them. Supposed to read them? The effort to think is, in essence, a struggle against the past. In the midst of the journey, one traveler wiped clean his seat window once again and thought, is a thinker truly civilized? There's no doubt he can act so. But is he really civilized? There is no intellectual rhyme or reason to the matter of survival, and precious little else to anything otherwise. A group of people declared, the only way we can describe man is by comparison, while he yet remains incomparable. Later, in private, a nearby woods told them not to take it so seriously. If all talk is at heart mystical, then all talk is in essence humorous. At the edge of the city, you can either fuck, fight, or eat your way toward happiness. Meanwhile, later, sometime after that, one man's neurons thought, where were we in that comment? Disturbing assurance for the ordinary. Life is too simple to be simply explained. Tip from this galaxy's God's Handbook. To disturb a man, first, tell him what time it is. A private thinker. A man who can paint himself into a corner while everyone else believes that they're out in the open, and then when they think they're trapped, schlep his way out into the wide open spaces. A kid with his head turned inside out revealed a personal shout. A blunt definition can be a sharp definition. A man with too tight shoes doesn't need a straitjacket. Bad feet are sufficient distraction for routine neurons. The secret song of city artist. On the edge, I'm on the edge. Maybe not the cutting and maybe not the edge, but I'm on the edge. City artist. It's a good thing that Sam Giesenthal can't copyright that. When it comes to matters of the mind, most people prefer used information. Just as with young birds, pre-chewed food is safest. There's a difference between being original and being different. Critics, for instance, are trying to be different. I assume you catch the distinction. Plain talk and point-blank thought have many benefits, and two of them are that to the ordinary they are meaningless, while to a thinker they mean everything. Query, if you live in the public world of the city, who is the easiest to pacify when they become bored and irritable, the simple or the sophisticated? Note to the neural squadron regarding time. Beyond the survival level, there is never anything in the present to fear. Dialogue. Is it possible to know so much that you no longer have anything to say? You mean nothing of significance. Do you have the time? It's 8:30. Series 93-109. Idioms 1 through 45. If there were only two possibilities whenever man sees but two, then life would be no more than it seems. Children take childish things seriously. What better example do you ask of justice? In the overall historical march of civilization, the specific development of the city-states and governmental institutions was driven by the need to have men officially designated to announce the train arrivals and departures, since no one has the least idea where they come from or where they're going. An enigmatic schedule is the only one a few travelers will consult. The simple both rail at and delight in the life of the body. The same energies and dynamics that make roses flirt with bees and cause squirrels to flinch at the sight of dogs also drive and confine the mind there, right in the middle of basic backyard consciousness. When you think and speak of, what you think and speak of will lack a certain enjoyable, informative passion if your material is not original. The reason that myths are of no interest to a real hero is because he is not in them. One possible effect of knowing about the hot center in all large typhoons is that it can cause one to want to throw oneself into the eternal inferno, to give oneself the 12 uncompletable labors, and to become one's own Sisyphus and reoccurring hill, with a stone of shrapnel and hands daily tender from anticipation. A man mused, is it better to have loved and lost, or to have loved and lost and then have forgotten that one ever loved, as opposed to standing here recalling quite well that certain love that one did once feel and now seems unable to recapture? The only nostalgia one man allowed himself was in the reminiscence of possibilities. Warning for a thinker. Well, it sounds better than saying bad news for a thinker. If you get too old, you can't go back. A man looked up at the skies, to life, and said, from you, I demand the truth. And if I can't have that, I'll take your pity. If a moose could talk, and thus have mental problems, why would he be so dumb as to seek advice pertinent thereto from other mooses? One man would attempt to play question and answer games with himself, but it never worked. He always ended up feeling frustrated because he knew all the questions and answers but didn't realize it. The mind is to saccharin as neo-consciousness is to sugar. To believe in the need to know the truth keeps men from knowing squat. And once more, a kind of abstruse likening of sugar to the pseudo-sweet. Being individual is a solo act. Once men could speak, they began making maps of reality. But none were perfect representations of local reality. And as time passed, became in fact even less so. Any map that survived longer than 2 generations was eventually taken to be a myth. The ordinary collective progress of man can be spelled in many different ways, using many different letters, languages, and definitions. In fact, using them all in all possible combinations. Children take childish things seriously. A real man's got almost nothing. When we're finally dead, will we then understand? Don't count on it. When we're totally consumed, will we then comprehend? Perhaps then. A better ladder. Those interested in the arts just do it to keep from having to study science. Those interested in science do it. Just do it to keep from having a social life. Those interested in a social life just do it so they won't have to sleep alone. Those who do sleep alone are those who have gas and just don't want to have to worry about any of this kind of stuff. There is a non-physical sequence to life that men do not normally see, which is why they give so much attention to the one they do. Men who will point out how life is and tell you how it could be different are either just your own dumbass neighbor or perhaps a real thinker. Who knows, and what difference does it make? There is no doubt about the mind being like a fish on a line, but who told the world out there that it could have a rod and reel? One day, long ago, a man proposed to some other people. Let's all hang out together and talk about stuff we're not interested in. And they decided to call it civilization. Another's thoughts never strike deep enough for a real thinker. Old Saltwater Bill, that lonesome alert blues singer on the docks, has a new one for all of you music lovers entitled Pouring Adrenaline on a Drowning Man. This is a 4-verser, folks. It's hard to go down for the 3rd time if you won't go down for the 2nd. The reason that suicide is so much more popular around some yacht clubs than homicide has to do with the better care that one will give to one's own boat than will someone simply paid to do so. Those who do not the nature of allegory comprehend see them everywhere. When a real sailor looks at the sea, he sees water. When he looks at his mind, then he finds naval myths. Whenever another human or human institution holds up two fingers, you may feel proper in turning and running for your life. Every man's prescription is his and his alone. Not so with each man's ills. Genes left to raise children, but not all humans do. Minds left to grow, but not all minds do. A man thought, yet another singular pleasure in being intellectuous homo sapiens, being human, is that you never know from one day to the next just how stupid you're going to be. All religions started out as one man's method, not some goal. All institutions began as dreams of flying to somewhere neat, but ended up as airports. Everyone started out as one thing and then became something else, and there you are. To think on one's own. Those who quote have missed the boat. 1, 2, just look at my shoe. 1, the simple starve. 2, 1, 2, just look at my shoe. 1, the simple stare. 2, everyone's mind is simple. 1, 2, you know what to do. One man's secret code name was Ramblin' Jack, erstwhile Jack. Because his actual name was Jack, and he used to ramble only in the land of Jack. In a hormonal-based animal pack, it will be the strongest, the bravest, the most attuned to survival who will assume leadership. While with neural-centered groups of men, it will often be a cripple. Yet again, another reason real heroes don't have heroes. It's too costly and irrelevant. A payroll analogy. Doing this kind of stuff is like thinking off the books. Everything man can do, he can do in 2 different ways. This alone distinguishes him from every other living creature on this planet, except, of course, the Virginia white pine. This week's mythical principle. Only thieves, killers, the insane, and one other group have even the slightest suspicion as to what life is actually all about. Why respect simplicity? Why resent it? Why not just ignore it? One man's great-great-great-grandfather was a volcano, and the process is not over yet. Any man who believes that his bruises are caused by other men would believe that the tooth fairy doesn't actually have more than 25 cents. The arts are man's continuing attempt to bring his survival-based passions into a post-savage age. There are also those who believe this would benefit man's thinking. What good would it do you to know why you're the way you are? What should be of interest is how to stop it. One man said to himself, I do not particularly care if I have poison ivy, but if I must, I'd prefer to have it in the center of my back where I cannot reach. If this be allegory, then what possible connection does this have to man's mind? A child's question. Here's a better version. To what can all allegory be connected but man's mind? The matter of survival is never metaphorical, but until man becomes so, he does not truly survive. A man wondered, how long can you think without finally, even by accident, come to thinking about how things actually are? And his mind replied, can you spell forever? Human thought processes certainly have a purpose. That doesn't mean they have to tell you what it is. One of the alluring trompe l'oeils is the belief that one might possibly escape through some verbal cleverness. By making men believe that they neurally have a choice, life has given man a choice of sorts. A man who is truly a man would say, I may have my simplicity in common with the simplistic, but I am also diverse and complex. All right. The development of the city-states, of civilization marches along, and of governmental institutions, all institutions. I constructed them, I'll deconstruct them. All of this came about through the need for there to be officially appointed people that we all recognize to officially announce the arrival and departures of the trains for one reason, because no one knows where they came from and nobody's got any idea where they're going. Is this simply a non sequitur? No. Non sequiturs could be easier than that. You don't see part of the purpose of the collective thinking of man of all sorts, institutional, collective wisdom, conventional wisdom. What is it? What is it the old folks, those who might be your elders? Well, a couple of you, assuming there is such a thing as somebody older than you are. No. What are human institutions? What is the basis? What is the purpose of ordinary knowledge of all sorts, whether it appears to be metaphysical, scientific, but especially that seems to be tied to the social, the civil existence of man? It's always someone being in a position of authority, somebody. It's why I threw in the governmental aspect and all that, and official. You go down to a train station, and everybody that works for them, or they used to, well, I'm sure they still do, they even do it with buses. You go down there and there's a guy, his job used to be just stand around, all you did was announce, the Silver Street going to Buffalo, now on track 7. There he stands with a sign, track 7. How stupid are you going to be that you can't find your train, but there's a guy with a cap, a hat, some omelets on his thing. Perhaps carrying his umlauts on one side of it. But you have an official man saying the train will be leaving at such and such time, the train is such and such will be coming in. Think about all this now. And you could even be standing there, you or some other person, and he'll get through announcing it and you'll wait 30 seconds. He just got through saying, the train will be arriving from Cincinnati on this track in approximately 10 minutes. And you'll stand, other intelligent people, and you'll walk over and you'll wait a couple minutes and you'll say, the train from Cincinnati. He may straighten his little cap and he'll say, yes, the train from Cincinnati. On this track. Like, it's going to change them. Yes. And you said, what, about 10 minutes? Well, probably about 8 now. Well, thank you. Now, that sounds simple enough. If you take that beyond train travel into any other area you want to, it's the same thing. But you got to remember that everyone wants to be pushed around by somebody. That was from last time. If that sounds a little too harsh, and of course it sounds a little too harsh, then you've got ears too tender from daily anticipation also. To be pushed around, though, is to go up and say, are you sure of the train from Cincinnati? Let me do it a little different way. And the guy straightens his uniform and his little cap. He goes, what did I say? Yeah. Or I'm just, beginning now to start time to make this up, and don't take it literally. But all the many ways that human institutions and collective life can respond, verbally, overtly, and otherwise, what he does is sort of, he can, straighten his coat. And what he's saying is, I am an official person. Is the train from Cincinnati actually coming on this track? And you kind of smile like, is it a joke? And he can go, that is telling you, I'm an official person. I do not joke. I mean, not on official time. Maybe in his spare time he might enjoy a joke. But the man's in charge of saying, the end of the world is coming. Oh, I'm sorry. I got it. The train from Cincinnati will be here on this track in 10 minutes. You go, are you sure? Come on. Really? On this track? That's not funny. I mean, the man's going to show you this is not funny. I have been officially appointed. This is not a job of somebody would stand up here and maybe, smoke some of those funny things and start telling jokes and being, hey, flight, 714 coming in from Freeport, Bahama will be landing on this track in 20 minutes. Ho, ho, ho. No, folks, we're talking about life. We're talking about civilized life here. You don't think that's part of the purpose of civilization? Then it's only ordinary people, though, once in the midst of that, which we're all once in the midst of that. It's only after that then they become concerned, as they're supposed to, over the kinds of debates like, why does that train always have to come in on the same track? I don't care why, I'm just beginning. Why does the people here, these official people, why do they keep wearing that cheap-looking uniform with those clashing colors of green and that off blue? You understand? They'll talk about anything except the point blank as to why do we need somebody to officially announce the arrival and departure of trains. See, I was nice by saying nobody knows where they came from, where they're going. It's open to some question as to where they actually exist. Oh, I know. Everybody in the station says they do. All the same people. They say, oh, certainly they do. Have you ever seen one? Well, I've seen the smoke. I know somebody that saw one. I can feel the steam. I can hear the noise. Remember, we're not talking about trains. We're talking about the ordinary operations of the human intellect, and especially in the collective sense. And part of the purpose of men getting together and having civilization is they can talk about that. Whose reality, whose simple existence, may I suggest, is open still to some question, but you must get past that. And what's the easiest way to get past that? I've already answered. Get somebody officially appointed to discuss it, to announce when such things will be here, when they're leaving, whether they're on time or not. And very shortly. How shortly? Real shortly. After that, people forget. There's no longer discussion about, are trains actually arriving and coming? And if so, what's the purpose? That's not the question anymore. The question is now, direct toward official people, announcing, talking all about them. The bottom of that one was, an enigmatic schedule is the only one a few people will even consult. Should we change the name of this to the enigmatic schedule? Makes as much sense as new intelligence, doesn't it? Wish we had somebody official here in a uniform, we could ask them. The simple both rail at and delight in the life of the body. Does that sound too simple and obvious or not? Who denounces man the most? In general. The simplistic, those in a backward time zone. those at the lower levels of life's just ordinary hierarchy at any particular time. Why don't we talk about this time? Hey, why not? This time's one of the times. Who condemns man the most? It's the same people who revel in the very thing that they condemn. At least it won't hurt me, but I keep fearing that some of you miss the point of some like this. Who gives man the most leeway? Intellectuals. Intellectuals, members of the Church of England, perhaps of peerage background. And who has the least fun of getting drunk and running off the road at night and picking up a strange waitress or waitress, falling down, hurting themselves, playing horseshoes blindfolded, and them acting, letting somebody, use their leg as a stake, overeating? Not them. I wish we had a man with a uniform here that was official, and I could say, do you think I meant that allegorically or not? And him go, yes, track 7 in about 10 minutes. That's the thing about being official. You don't have to answer abstruse questions. Because you're official, you think, what the hell does abstruse mean? Because you got a book, and you look in you're at the handbook of official person, you look in the index under abstruse. You may have something like asshole or something to cover, people like me that come and ask a question, or, alimony, in case you... Official people, that's part of being official. That's part of being at the heart, especially in direct employ of civilization, is you don't have to put up with a whole lot of crap. That's why you have handbooks. Are we talking about the government or religion? I don't know. You people are thinking too fast. But if you have a handbook and somebody says, well, wait a minute, you can't tell us to do this, can you? I didn't know we weren't supposed to do this. And they go, wait a minute. And he can look in his book. And if it's not there, it's not his responsibility. Am I right? Sure, you're right. Is this an attack on bureaucrats? Not hardly. That's not the collective wisdom of man. Well, I want to know what's going on here, you ask life, at a local level. Whoever you think's in charge, the guy in the uniform, the guy in a priest suit. You ask him, I want to know what's going on here. And he says, good question. And he looks in his book, in the index. Does it say anything about what's going on here? No. Is he relieved? Not just relieved, he's officially relieved. And not him personally, life is officially relieved. It's only the poor suckers, the chumps, like I won't mention any names, because most people, once you realize that no one has the answer and it's no one's book, give it up. Go get on a bus. Go take a ride. Go sit down. Go to the bathroom. Go get a pop. It's only, I don't know, there's a few people, they keep wandering off and muttering to themselves. I'm going to try this one. I'm not sure that even I enjoy the way... Is it too abstruse? Indirect, the way it was written. What you think and speak of will lack a certain enjoyable, informative passion if your material is not original. That's 20 or 25 words. There is a certain real passion. And I did throw in enjoyable, which was the first adjective that came to mind. And I started to leave it there, and now I threw in informative. So that some of you might think that it was actually... I know that some of you still don't see that enjoyable is informative. It's beyond a synonym. But then, if you understand all that, you should understand I could drop the adjective and just say a certain passion. If your material is not original, there is a certain passion lacking. But the reason I didn't leave it just that, because then I could start using examples and say, look at a fairly popular, or I guess they'd call rousing, political speaker, or a religious, especially a fundamentalist minister of some ilk, of some religion. And there certainly seems to be a kind of passion I mean, turn one of these religious channels and find the guys from, the Superman Church of God of Phoenix, Arizona, or somewhere, and you'll see a guy, if he's raising enough money still in the air, then you'll see a guy that has a certain kind of passion. We'll have to say that. In fact, you ought to turn the mute button, I guess, before you turn the channel, because they're inclined to raise their voices and stomp their feet. But if you can once hear it, there is a certain passion lacking. I'm just using them as one example. Politicians. Anyone who does not understand what they're talking about. Which would be open to some question, I guess, about, understand what they're talking about. How about original? That the material, that is understanding what you're talking about. Whether anybody else does or not. If you know what you're talking about, there's a kind of passion that is extant then and only when then. In case your life is too burdened by having to listen to what seems to be important information from news or political or religious or social commentaries, and you wonder, there's so much available and it seems so important, I'm not sure which I should listen to. I don't want to miss anything important. Some of you got to. I can put it another way. When I say that even there's passion, somebody preaching the gospel from some religion, any religion, it doesn't matter what. And I have pointed out already that part of the benefit of that and the whole world of civilization, but especially religion seems a great example, is you can harangue people to the point of bringing tears to their eyes or making them evidently start backing up in fear for their safety based upon their question of your sanity. Some minister, screaming and his hair flying, his eyes turning red, and him screaming about what God's got in mind for you. And if you tried for a moment to calm him down, splash a little water on him or say, come on, how can you be so passionate about it? How can you be such a harsh critic of man? And they say, it's not me. It is not me. It is simply, and they wave it. That is what is lacking in the passion, because the material is not original. And you surely understand that doesn't mean just that you wrote it. Only you know if it's original. Because in a sense there is nothing original. Any words anyone uses, everyone else has used, and chances are someone may have even put a sentence together. If you said, here's the most important thing I have to say tonight. There's a very good likelihood, or there is a likelihood, a possibility that someone has said the same. If you say, here it is, here is my message, my most important cosmic revelation for the night, and you say the sentence, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's very likely that somebody has said that same thing. That doesn't matter. If it was original with you, if you understand what you're talking about, that is original. And it's only when you can do that that there's a certain kind of passion to it. But now would you note that the item itself said what you think and say, because I did not go to the trouble to bring this up to make some comment or try to offer advice having to do with public speaking about, if you're going to actually stir up a crowd and you want to get somewhere in life, obviously take a lesson from me. It's not just there's going to be a passion lacking. And the passion is the lack of originality. The lack of originality is also translatable, once you understand, into a lack of knowing what you're talking about. And since no one, hardly on the planet, ever knows what they're talking about, that's why we have official people. That's why we have the past. That's why we have all forms of holy books. That's why we have the sequential march and apparently slow, evolving evolution of human knowledge, social mores, is because people do not know what to think. And they go, I don't know what to think, so I know what I'll do. I'll read a book. I'll check it out. I'll ask somebody. And that keeps up this normal sequence. It keeps things stable. But that is not original, and there's a certain kind of passion lacking. Not that, if I must point out again, not that the world is dying for any form of this kind of passion and originality. I mean, if you think that, then how are you going to explain the fact that you turn on TV or go to the movies, and all movies, all TVs, all popular books are all the same book, movie, or TV in your lifetime? Oh, I know they change around and they change the character's name from Bob to Bill, and in the next movie it's the son of Bob and Bill. Don't make me go through all this sarcasm. You know damn well. Everybody knows this. I mean, it's a trademark. I forget they tripped somebody in Hollywood. The thing is, the only originality that counts, and I forgot the joke that some director supposedly said, boy, what I want, we got to have an original script around here. This studio's got to have a hit. And I'll go, yes, JB, yes, JB. And he said, boy, we got to have a hit. And he looks down and see what's the hottest movie of the week from some other studio. And he says, write me one just like it and change the name. That's originality. That's not just a joke. And it's not just Hollywood. We're not picking on hack screenwriters. That is the nature of the normal, stable evolution of human consciousness at the collective level. Human thought, human wisdom, the arts, the sciences, religion, morality. I'm simply pointing out, people do not sit at home and start surfing through their channels and going, Jesus, this show's just like that other show. I can't remember the name of it. There's so much alike. Now I know, except the heroes this time, it's a tall husband and a short, fat wife. And that other show, it's got to be the same writers. It's a short, fat husband and a tall wife. And they've got 2 boys and a girl, and this show's got 2 girls and a boy. That's the same crowd. I don't know. Somebody may sit somewhere and when their short hairs get all tied up and they go, boy, these shows are all alike. Somebody may say that. But do you notice that you have to constantly walk down the street wearing a helmet because people are throwing their TVs out the window? Do you notice people out in front of theaters picketing like, we're sick of seeing the same movie over and over and over and over again with simply new names on them? Do you see them in front of bookstores? Hollering, I'm sick. I have to spend money. I joined the Fiction Book of the Month Club, and I pay money, and they send me the same damn book every month. Oh, they put a new cover on it. And they say, Once Upon a Time in Italy. And I start reading. Oh, boy, I want to read. And suddenly I realize, it's the same book I read 6 months ago, except this started out, Once Upon a Time in Greece. There is no demand. That was the joke, sort of. So it's not that people are hurting for passion. But now back to, I was not trying to give some comment about how to be a good public speaker. That was also my joke about, I assume nobody showed up waiting to learn such lessons from me. If you do, then I had another joke, but they don't like to have those kind of jokes on even cable TV. At any rate, the item says what you think and speak of will lack a certain enjoyable, informative passion if your material is not original. Now forget you speaking. If you think and speak, now back to you, for it's should be of some interest. If what you think is not original, and we're not going to stand here and split hairs forever, which you can, about, well, how can something actually be original? We just went through that. Yeah, it can't. Except you know when it is. You know when it was original with you. Rather than impressing other people, which is not the point of trying to do this anyway, but it will still be lacking. It's why ministers, and if I didn't make that clear, you should know it, but why people out in the public eye that apparently are on stage trying to do something. Let's get way off the subject right quick. That's one reason that people love to sing songs. Not write songs. That's why people like to sing other people's songs. Back on the subject. That is why all public speakers, somebody up trying to sell a real estate course, trying to sell you anything, minister, politician, once you can hear it, there is a sameness to all of it. You begin to understand there's no difference between a minister and a guy selling snake oil, selling a real estate course, a guy asking you to vote for him for governor. There's no difference. It's all the same thing. And they also all lack a certain, and I called it passion. But I don't mean the pounding and hollering that, boy, if you don't buy this now, or wait a minute, I'm going to cut the price. I know they'll kill me. I'm going to cut another $100 right now. Come to Jesus. Thank you, Lord. And you say, well, that's passion. Yeah, but once you hear it, it is passion of a sort. But you can also look at it, it's a kind of cover-up. For the fact that they got no idea. I can say what they're talking about, and an ordinary mind can deny that and say, well, the guy that's selling the course, he knows what he's talking about. He's the one that wrote the course, how to make $1 million every week in the stock market while investing none of your money. And people are signing up to get it. And all you got to do is say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That is, whatever it is they're trying to sell won't fly. Surely you follow. Because an ordinary man can say, well, that's not true because whoever wrote the course understands it. A man went to school. He is a doctor. Well, could he look at my foot? He's not that kind of doctor. He's a doctor of theology. But it still took 12 years, which I don't like to think about. Do you realize it takes as long to be a doctor of theology as it does a proctologist? It is quite simply, if you can hear it, there is no rancor involved, there is no criticism. It's that out in the civilized world, since it's all euphemistic, and in a sense it's all non-essential, it's all post-survival, in a sense, all of it is a sham, in a sense. And therefore, what are you going to do? You're trying to sell somebody, give your heart to God, buy my course. I mean, it's not something you need. Maybe it's a hobby, I don't know. But it's not something you've got to have. None of it is. Not in the civilized world. That's why the cities, they all get together. You remember the guy said, hey, let's all hang out and talk about stuff that we're not interested in. That was on tonight. I could expand it a little bit. Let's all hang out together and talk and do stuff. Try to do stuff that none of us care about. And they decided to call it civilization. That's it. So, on that basis is how you begin to hear it. That's why, to varying degrees, I know that everybody doesn't, holler and scream, but they do if they're going to sell anything. The new Ginsu knife. The guy's got to do something. He'll say, "What's this? What's this? You're not going to believe. I know Ginsu number 2 you thought would cut. What's this?" Well, as opposed to if you were, flipping through it and the guy goes, "We have a new knife. It is Ginsu 3. If you're not interested, it's not even entertaining, right? All of the passion. All of what seems to be the passion, when somebody's trying to sell you something that is non-essential, there does have to be a kind of sales pitch to it. There has to be. Well, I'm sure you got it. But on the contrary, is you do not have to give a sales pitch, even a public service from the government about, all right, you people eat food. If they did, it wouldn't have to be passionate. They could just flash on the screen just for those who may be between the twilight zone of actually being alive and fairly conscious, and to say, eat some food every day. That's all you have to say. I mean, if you're going to do anything, which sounds ridiculous, but all you have to do is have, even a voice. I mean, on the face, just a voiceover, just, black screen says, the government encourages each person to eat every day. They don't have to be in passion, but to get somebody to eat. Dr. Frosty's Posty Oatsy cereal, which may be fine, but to get you to eat that one thing, you got to scream, you got to have cartoons, you got to have your own kinds of animation, and somebody hollering, You got to do that. You got to do it on the basis that you do not have to eat that guy's food. That's how you can hear all the sales pitches of the world. That you should finish school, should have a wife and family, not get pregnant, that's one thing, that's hormonal. But that you should be middle class, you should have a job, you should get somewhere in life, you should be responsible, you should get a haircut. Whatever the hell it is, if it's not essential, there has to be a certain kind of passion to sell it. But that passion is suspect to a few people. And I say suspect, like I said, we're not being critical, it's necessary. But once you hear what it is, you realize, well, there's nothing to get mad at, there's nothing to be sarcastic about, which I'm not being, I'm just trying to get you to see. But that's not real passion. There's a passion that's only known to somebody that's original. Which this is a little off the subject, and it's not exactly it, but those in the arts, people who are sort of creative, artistically, musically, they get little touches of it. And I'll tell you this, the bourgeoisie, many of them, middle class, they get little aromas and whiffs of it, and how shall I put it? It kind of pisses them off. Which is one reason the middle class always has a bad name for artists. Not that they don't deserve it, and they won't get a haircut and do right, but they also kind of resent it. Like, why don't you people get a job? Why don't you get a mortgage and settle down? Back to real originality, though. The real originality is here. I mean, the other can be fun, etc. But the originality, everyone, including painters and composers and dancers and anyone in the arts, what they're after, like everyone else, is the originality of this, trying to push their own nervous system into tomorrow. Past the point of where the trains are arriving and departing today. Don't go ask somebody at the station, well, which train shall I ride? Some son of a bitch will tell you. He'll say, well, I'm glad you asked. Hell yeah, he's glad you asked. He'll be glad to tell you. But if he'll tell you, why the hell hadn't he on it? Why is he staying there working for the state? Why is he working for the government? Why is he middle class? Now, originality is in here. And back to what you think and speak of will lack a certain enjoyable and informative passion if the material is not original. Now, finally getting past what appears to be a salesman or a minister or a politician trying to sell somebody else to yourself. Why is it that what you think, what is it what you try to think about, the ways you try to think about life, the ways you try to analyze, why does it lack? Why do you keep going, what do I do? Or why do you like listening to me sometimes, some of you? We won't ask for a vote, but some people like hearing this some of the time. Why? And why is it you think, well, sometimes I can do it myself and sometimes I can't. And what's lacking? You may say, well, that's easy for you to say. Well, it was. Originality. Ordinary people then, well, they try to look for all sorts of things. Well, I have tasted that experience before. I have had that experience. I have been in such a state internally that I would almost give anything to bring it back. What's lacking? And people even try to think, well, what was I doing before that? Did I take some drugs? Did I change jobs? Did I had a new girlfriend, new boyfriend? Is there something it was tied to? But what is it you're actually after? It's originality. And what's lacking, the passion in you. Not between you and somebody else now. Your mind, in a sense. Are you trying to say yourself? You're trying to find something to buy. You're trying to find something to pacify or to bring back that state. Or to make you feel satisfied. What is lacking? I know I can call it many things, but it is originality in one sense. That's one description. Because the passion is not there. And always remember, though, denying somebody else, refuting somebody else, this sales pitch is not originality. If that's the best you can do, I hate to tell you this, the word starts with a C. I was hoping some of you would think even worse. A critic. Ha ha. See, there's a worse one. But a critic has C-R-I-C-T. That's not originality. And that's why it is lacking. That is why I continue to try to get you to consider, if you hadn't, the absolute waste of time. It's not moral, it's not religious, but of being a critic, of being antagonistic, of being irritated by anybody else's thinking, because it keeps you from even the possibility. You're not even close to being original. But it's ordinary people will say things like, well, I got to cut down the weeds of ignorance to ever get to the truth. Yeah. I got to in some way deny. I've got to stand up, at least internally, and say a word for the truth. Listening to all these damn idiots out here, all these preachers and politicians or whoever, they're idiots. Something's got to be done about it. Something is being done about it. They're raising another generation. They're arguing about it. But for you to think, well, I'm too smart to fall for that. Well, that's easy to say, because once you're in a supplying position, you can say, I'm too smart to fall for that, and nobody can prove otherwise. It's just hard if somebody asks you to explain why it is you're looking up everybody's dress and knickers. Yeah, but I'm not going to fall for that. Being critical of other people's unoriginal thinking is not originality, and you can talk about it forever. But that is not originality, and that is what the passion is that is not there. Is every time you feel critical, every time that your mind's going to do it anyway. So we're not talking about that you have some mental problem. The problem is getting away from the mental. So it's not your mental problem, but if suddenly you hear a voice out in public, or on TV, or the radio, or you look into a newspaper, or even your own mind brings back something you heard last night that somebody said, and you repeat it with a certain kind of, and even perhaps answer it. But you know how to do it yourself. All you got to do is just repeat it and give a whole new internal invisible meaning to the word sardonic. You remember somebody saying, well, what this country needs is a real democratically run Congress. And you think that's original. I mean, if you're ordinary, you do. But then if you're just a little bit past ordinary, then you keep wondering, well, why don't I feel any better? How come as I see through the folly of everyone else, and I'm not any smarter? Well, why don't I feel any better? Why am I not more entertained by life? No. I don't guess I have to preach on that. Damn it. Yeah. Well, I was going to start making up other metaphors and run the clock out, but it's like you're in a lifeboat and it's sinking, and you're cursing the holes in the lifeboat. No? You believe you're the only one that sees them. What if that was true? Which is not, but what if that were true? Then what would you like, when we go out and have some kind of memorial service at sea, where we heard you sing, what would you like for us to say? He was nobody's fool. I mean, as he was drowning, he went, I told you there were holes in this boat. I told every one of you. And to maybe hope the best for you, are we going to assume that the other people in the boat, just as they were all going down, and you said, I told you so, and they'll go, I'll be damned if he didn't. And they all look at you, sort of enviously, with a certain kind of awe, just when the water comes up and their eyes are going down. And you believe that they looked at you right then like, we should have listened to you. Zero. We now have zero time.